Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
All right, but I do have a question for both of you.
Okay.
Have you ever wanted to judo chop somebody in the throat? Legitimately. You just have this provoking inside of your soul to just be, "Pah!
You know what?
Kapow!"
I'm wondering if this is a gendered question.
No, it's
All I
not.
could think about is how it would hurt my own hand. Like, that's how you know my body was not built for that.
I have literally never, like, the concept of judo chopping has never once even entered my mind. Like,
Ow.
that's not even something I've ever even considered.
But here's the deal. There are a lot of people out there that want to judo chop people in the throat. It may be not the throat, maybe like in other places, but they feel these involuntary reactions that they feel inside of their body viscerally. And they're like, I don't know why I want to do this right now.
Or they really know why they
Or
want
I
to do
know
it.
exactly
Like
why. But what you're having is a body response.
Yeah.
And we're going to teach about the body response today
Yes,
and why
we are.
you might want to judo chop someone in the throat.
Well, that's for all of you that don't relate to that. That's not actually what the concept is fully going to be about. But we are going to talk about a concept that revolutionized my life because it helped me understand what was going on inside of me. For a long time, I didn't know that I had body triggers and I had separate logic thoughts.
Yeah.
And I didn't until I started realizing that I had body sensations and body reactions and implicit memory going on in my body.
Like the desire to judo chop someone on the throat.
That is probably one for you. That is actually probably a real thing. I bet as a kid you wanted to judo chop people in the throat, and as an adult that memory has lived on.
Yeah, lived on, especially when I'm driving. Anyways.
Yeah. But for me, it really, I think about the verse in the Bible all the time. It's like, I do what I don't want to do. It says, I do not understand what I do, for I do what I don't want to do, and what I hate, I do. And it's this concept of, I'm wanting to do these things, but I end up not doing them. And why is that happening?
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is it's because our logic and core values can be very different than our body survival instincts.
Correct.
And so there can be a war within us. And until we understand how our body is functioning and how our nervous system works, then it's impossible to understand our reactions to things and why we do what we're doing.
And I want to add something to this because I know that there's a lot of reactions that I genuinely had in the past in our relationship, in other relationships with people, that I walked away feeling an immense amount of shame, being like, I feel so out of control. Why did I do that?
Yes.
That goes against the grain of my value system. And so I think a lot of people are living out life going like, oh, I'm doing these things that I think are so horrible. I hate that I do them. I don't know why I do them. I feel out of control. Is it just that I'm a bad human being? And at the end of the day, it's not that you're just a bad, horrible human being. There's probably things involved like body triggers that are causing you to have reactions that don't align with your value system. And we're going to learn a lot more about that.
Yeah. Anytime you have an addiction, I think, and I'm sad that they don't teach addiction skills with body-based healing, because anytime you have an addiction, what is happening is you're having an intolerable sensation go on in your body. You don't know what to deal with it. You've never been taught how to deal with that energy, that emotion, that memory that's coming up. And so you dive into an addictive behavior so that your body can get that come down, that relief, that release that it is longing for. And the more that I've understood this, the more shame-free it's brought in my own life for those kinds of things. Did you want to?
Also, welcome, Rachel.
Hello. Been here
In
the
the
whole
background.
time.
Just been
Lingering. Waiting for my moment.
Here it is. Here it is. Rachel is one of our master life consultants. She's been with us, probably like 12 years.
Something
11,
like that.
11, 12.
I don't know
I think it's a
anymore.
different number. It's
We keep
beyond
making up
10.
new numbers.
Yes. We've
But-
said 10 for years, so it's for sure beyond
It's
10
beyond
by now.
Yeah.
But we've trained her. She actually has helped us run our school, and me and her created the course that we're doing in January called Reclaiming You, which is all about getting the pieces back of who you are authentically,
Yes.
and learning how to be able to live out of your authentic, healthy, safe self, soothing your nervous system and building emotional resilience so you can live the life you want to live. So we created that, but that is just the intro to welcome, Rachel.
Hi. It's good to be here.
Yes.
I love what you're saying so much. I think that for me, it was so helpful for me to understand that my body was operating in service of my survival, if that makes sense. And that my body didn't have like the same morality that my logical mind did. So I went through a really intense season in when my husband and I went to go take care of his mom when she was dying of a terminal illness, and I got a lot of PTSD from that experience. And I started acting like a crazy person. That's my best way of describing it. And it just felt crazy on the inside of me. Like I genuinely felt like what you're saying about that verse, doing things that I never would have imagined that I would have been doing before, and doing things without consciously feeling like I was choosing to do it. And I had a lot of self-hatred about a lot of those reactions. Specifically, like I would become a very stonewalled person to my husband in a lot of different conflicts. I had an eating disorder. Like I said in our last episode, I did a lot of impulsive behavior around food that just felt like a little bit crazy. Like, unhinged. What am I doing? A little unhinged. Like, for an example, like weighing lettuce to see how much lettuce you should eat. Like very impulsive, and like somewhere in the deep crevices of my mind, I'm noticing this is a very odd,
this is crazy.
This is a bizarre behavior, but not feeling in charge of myself at all. And I remember when I started going through like trauma therapy and like more body-based healing, like you're talking about, understanding that my body was doing the best that it knew how to try to help me survive that situation. And understanding like my body doesn't really care if this is a good logical idea or not, or doesn't really care about my core values. It just is trying to help me not die in this season. And honestly, that really helped me start to have compassion for myself, because then I could be like, oh, you've just been trying to like make it. You've just been doing whatever it is that you can to get through this really overwhelming situation in whatever way you could.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I add something here?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about acknowledging like you're just doing whatever you can to make it. And I think a lot of us perceive ourselves or others as just garbage human beings. Like, oh, you're just a garbage human being. What's wrong with you? You're doing terrible things. That's so stupid. You know, there's all this heavy judgment that we hold towards ourselves and towards others on stuff. But then when you get actually down to the reality of some of these truths, you go, oh, my body, my responses are just survival responses. It's not about I'm a bad person. Like you said, my body doesn't care about my value system. My body is going, I'm just trying to make sure I survive another day.
Yes, 100%.
And so I love the relief that brings when you bring that up, because I'm like, a lot of us can have a sigh of relief and be like, maybe I'm not just a terrible human being.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something more to this.
Well, and the interesting thing is, so the pace of our logical learning and our body learning is different. And so we can learn really fast. I talk about this a lot in emotional health. So you come into we lead a school. It's a 3-year school. In the past we've done, and we do all these courses, and people will start to understand logically why they do what they do. But that doesn't mean now that their behavior has changed, because our brains compute information faster than our bodies do. So our brain is like, oh, okay, when I have a trigger, do these 3 steps. Our bodies, when they're in the trigger, are not doing the 3 steps. They have not learned a new pathway yet. Our bodies are patterned. Our nervous system is a pattern that repeats. And so it learns how to keep the same amount of stress, the same amount of panic, the same amount of reaction at all times. And the body is bringing up all of our past memories into every situation that we're in, but unconsciously. And so what ends up happening is our brain is like, do the 3 steps. And our body is like, nah. And so then so a lot of people who are learning emotional health and going into this journey end up having a lot of shame, because they start knowing more. then they can live out right away.
It's good.
And that's one of the reasons that learning about my body triggers versus my logic helped me to start to have peace with the discrepancy inside of myself, instead of beating myself up and shaming myself. You're bad because you're not doing the right thing. You know the right thing to do. Why aren't you doing it yet? Now I'm like, oh, okay, we know the right thing. And now we need to retrain my body to be able to be in alignment with me. And there's a way to retrain your body. That's what we're going to be teaching in our course. But the first step is just acknowledging it and being okay with the different pace.
Yeah. That's so good. That's such an introduction into grace, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Anyways.
Did you have something to say about that? The pace of our brain and our body?
Well, I always think that it's actually a really beautiful gift that the pace of our body is slower than maybe we would logically want it to be. Because if you try to, like, one analogy that I like to give is like when you go through a growth spurt as a kid, you take a while for your body to, I mean, there's a spurt, but it goes along throughout for years. And it would be like the equivalent if we could just like wake up with our new body. How that would actually be very painful and excruciating and probably break us a little bit. And there actually is a little bit of a sense of like, when we have too much change too fast is often when we actually kind of lose contact with ourselves, lose contact for reality a little bit. We can kind of have like a mental break, for lack of a better term. So I do think it's a hard thing to accept about humanity. It's like the wrestle of like, I don't really like that it takes this long, but it is a beautiful, I think it's like the grace of God for me personally, that it takes time. It takes time
to rewire. So let's start with, before we jump in, let's start with what implicit memory is so that we can actually help people understand how your body brings up past experiences without you even being aware of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different neuroscience about lots of different types of memory we have, but broadly we could just categorize it in two ways, which is that you have explicit memory, which is sort of, you can really easily verbalize it and you're pretty conscious of it. It's like
it's like a memory that you are aware of.
Yes. And you're aware that you're having a memory. It's like Justin telling me, I went to so-and-so's birthday party 2 weeks ago and these are the things that we did there. That's like a very conscious memory. Implicit memory is largely unconscious and nonverbal. And it's memories that are constantly influencing our emotions and our behavior and our thoughts without us consciously realizing it. So it's all happening below the level of our awareness. And really, we're having implicit memory pretty much the moment that we enter this planet. So we come into this planet starting to gather and learn all types of information about our caregivers and about the world around us. And most of that, again, is stored implicitly. It's stored in your body sensations and your emotions and your emotions, your body sensations, and just the sensory information around you. And so really, your implicit memory is the center of which a lot of our unconscious decisions are sort of made from, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
So basically, I could be, let's say I'm in conflict. My body will bring up all of the body sensations I've had in past conflicts without me asking it to, which is a wild sensation. I'm not asking my body to bring up all of the previous past experiences. And it can bring up the experiences I experienced from 0 to 2, which I don't even remember.
Totally.
Or it can bring up any plethora of things. Now, sometimes we logically can have memories, which would be explicit, come up of like, oh, what you're doing is reminding me of my dad. But most of the time, our body sensations are being flooded with all of the things that we have experienced throughout the years.
Yeah.
One of the things...
I wanted to add an example to that.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, historically, when you and I are in a conversation, and maybe when you feel a little heated and you begin to talk quickly in a way that feels like I'm being talked at, all of a sudden I feel anxiety hit my entire body. And my body starts tensing up and it starts bracing. And logically, I'm like, there's nothing violent happening here. There's nothing bad outwardly happening. But all of a sudden, I'm bracing because my body says, this is going to turn into a violent escalation of screaming, yelling, and potentially physical violence. Like not because you've turned into physical violence, not because of whatever. My body has an implicit memory that suddenly is, I'm back to a kid at a certain age where I'm on the other side of this experience. And suddenly it's hijacking me, this implicit body memory. And I am now responding to the potential of the threat that's in front of me. Would that be a good way to?
Yeah.
It's a great way to describe it.
Well, and then here's the frustrating part. So your brain might shame you and be like, it'll either shame you or blame me for the body sensations that you're having.
Right.
So if it shames you, you'll say, she's not actually doing anything intense. What's wrong with you for having this much anxiety? Or it'll turn the script and it'll blame me and it'll be like, she's being so unsafe. She's out of her mind.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you that my behavior is as bad as the feelings you are having in your body. And so this makes it very complicated in any intense situation to know how much is what they're doing and how much are the memories that I'm having in my body. It makes it very chaotic inside of ourselves to be able to sort what's happening.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, this is where it gets real tricky, is the interesting thing about implicit memory is it does not carry within it the sensation that something is being remembered.
Yes.
So you're not thinking, similar to the birthday party example, when I ask you, hey, what'd you do at the birthday party? You're then thinking about it and then telling me about it. That is, you're having a sensational awareness that I'm remembering something right now. Implicit memory.
So you're totally aware I'm having a memory.
I'm having a memory. With implicit memory, it does not carry within it that sensation.
It doesn't feel like a memory at all.
No, it feels like what is happening right freaking now.
And it feels like it's happening because of the event in front of us
and
right now.
Exclusively because of the event that is in front of us. Now, the funny part, and this is always the thing that I like to add, just as like the little neuroscience person in me, is that the irony is every time you have an emotion, you're remembering. So how your body is deciding what emotion that you're going to have is predictive. So you're looking at the situation similarly to what Justin had said. You're looking at the situation and then you're deciding what your emotions are going to be based on the situation.
What's been in the past.
Based on what it's been in the past. So you literally cannot separate your emotional experience from your memories and the information that your body holds.
One of my favorite quotes that Rachel says is, to have an emotion is to remember.
Yeah.
You cannot separate memories from experiences in your body.
Yeah.
And that is a wild concept. And it's bananas, but it does. I mean, it's just like, it makes you be like, oh my gosh. So there's so much going on inside of us. And this helps me. A great example, I think, of implicit for me in conflict is I will be sitting there and my logic will be like, I want to be connected to Justin. I love him. I have compassion on this thing that I did. I can see how it would have affected him. I could see how me saying that could have deflated his idea. I can think that in my head.
Totally.
And I can be telling myself, say you're sorry. And my body can be like, no, we are not saying we're sorry. This does not feel safe. There's like a wall. There's a wall. And so I'm like, sometimes I'm peering behind the wall being like, I want to love you, but I can't. And I remember I was in conflict with one of my friends and we were really struggling because in the conflict, I was like, I actually need you to be able to have empathy for what is going on. And they said, I want to have empathy, but my body won't let me get there because all it can feel is I'm in threat. I'm in danger. I need to lock you out. I need to shut down. And when they said that, it actually really helped me because I was like, yes, we can have intentions and we can have a body reaction that is trying to protect us. And oftentimes, like in my best self, my logic can win.
Yeah.
But typically that's when the threat is smaller than my logic. But a lot of times I'm in situations where the threat, because of my past memories, if you have PTSD,
100%.
it's basically like you get in certain situations and it's like you're just in a flashback without knowing you're in a flashback. And so then it's like, how, like that situation with you, I'm like, sometimes I just want to like text you, like inside of me is screaming that I want to be close. But I can't get past my survival instincts that say you're bad and you're wrong. Stop it. You apologize first.
Well, I think a good word to use is hijacked.
Yeah.
And maybe that conveys too much powerlessness, but I think that acknowledging like, oh no, there's probably a hijacking that's taking place inside of this. And if you can be aware of the hijack, then you can go, okay, how do I take it back? But I know that I'm being hijacked. Again, it's not something I want to be doing, but something's overriding all of my longings of how I want this to go. And all of a sudden, I refuse to apologize.
Yeah.
And one thing I was saying too is, I also think it's helpful to know that this could also be happening in smaller ways every day without people recognizing it. Like, I think this is like when I scroll.
Yes.
Like when I get scroll, what it is happening often is like, my body had some sort of emotional experience and was difficult for me to regulate. And so then I'm just finding myself unconsciously sitting there on Instagram going, I'm doing a behavior to try to bring myself some sense of relief through my body without even necessarily consciously choosing it. I'm just doing it.
Yes. Yeah, and this, I want to add to that. So a lot of what I'm looking for is how do I soothe the discomfort in my body.
Yeah.
And and this is what all addictions are. I'm going to go shopping because there's discomfort in my body. Yeah. I'm going to go scroll because there's discomfort in my body. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to go make other people happy and be codependent because there's uncomfortable feelings inside of my body and I don't know how to self-soothe.
Yeah.
And that's why learning how to soothe our physical sensations was one of the most powerful things for me to start learning, because all of my life was a reaction. And this is true for everyone. We are all reacting to uncomfortable body sensations, but I didn't even know I was having body sensations. I didn't even know that I was feeling things in my body.
Yeah.
So then I didn't know how to soothe it. So the first step is to notice I actually am having anxiety or I want to crawl out of my skin. Like shame is a great example.
Yeah.
I had discomfort in my body in shame all the time. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I wanted to run away from myself, but I didn't recognize that that was a physical sensation. So what I did with shame is I tried to out-logic it. I would just loop over what I should have said, what I could have said differently, how I should have been different. I would beat myself up over and over and over again, not realizing I actually am just having a body sensation that needs care. It needs to be soothed. It needs some attention. And now when I have shame, instead of trying to fix the event, I go and try to fix the sensation, not fix, but like soothe, nurture the sensation. And there's a lot of ways to move the energy of emotion out of our body. And I didn't know that existed.
Yeah. This will sound like this will sound like a little bit of a bunny trail, but this is where the religious institution does a severe injustice to a lot of people, because they chalk up a lot of the behavior as you have poor behavior, you're being immoral, you're being sinful, and
you have a demon.
Yep. And they hyper spiritualize and then chalk it up to something that it isn't. And when you can actually get down to healthy scientific education of how we function within our bodies and how they're set up,
so good.
You can alleviate a lot of shame, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And then you can actually get momentum. I know a lot of people, they live for years feeling like nothing changes inside of me. I'm trapped inside of this situation. I'm just a horrible human being. God doesn't like me for this behavior I do. And I'm like, actually, it's not that complex. There's simply something going on inside of your body that you don't know how to move through. And if you have the right tools, you can become self-aware. You can get connected to your body. You can move through these body triggers and repair things that are happening, and you can move on and you're fine.
Like I had a client that struggled with anger over and over and over again. And every week at church, they would pray for God to take their anger away. They'd pray, they'd do deliverance.
Which feels hopeless.
They would, and they felt so hopeless, and they had so much self-hatred in it. And so when we started meeting, I actually was like, first of all, we're not going to villainize what's going on.
Amazing.
When you're having anger take over, that means your body is having a memory, an implicit memory that you're not aware of, and it is sending you into fight or flight because it thinks it's protecting you so that you can survive. Somewhere you learned that you were in threat.
Yeah.
And that you needed to survive at all costs. And so what we're going to do is we're going to learn to recognize your body sensations before you get to anger, before you get to rage.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn some things, some movements that you can do so you can be in tune with the energy in your body and actually find releases that are healthy instead of the anger, the yelling, the raging, the throwing, all of that, the explosion. And so like, let's actually figure out what is going on in your body before you do the thing you don't want to do. And that's what I now do with people who have addictions. We got to actually help people notice the sensations. Once you notice, oh, I didn't realize like I'm agitated on the inside. I'm antsy on the inside. Well, once you realize there's a sensation that feels uncomfortable, I can do something with that, because none of us were taught that. So he didn't think there was any way to get out of his uncomfortable emotions except to yell.
Yeah.
Except to dominate, except to get angry. And so now he's recognizing, once he understood his nervous system, he understood he was wired. He was looking at threat. His body was taking over. He was now reacting out of implicit memory. He is now feeling out of control. Once he started to learn that, then he could go back and start to see things steps before he got to the reaction point. And then that changed his life because he was able to have power over something. He wasn't just waiting for God to miraculously heal this thing inside of him.
Yeah. I love that. It puts you back in the seat of choice. Like once you start to be able to recognize my body is involved, then you can start to slow things down enough to actually start to pay attention to it. And that in and of itself starts to give you like a little bit more of like, oh, I have the ability to start to choose a path. Because what you're saying is so powerful, because it is like our body is going to choose a way to release this emotional energy in my body, whether I'm consciously aware of it or not.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing about finding that out is that now I can monitor the energy levels in my body, and then I can learn how to consciously release the energy in my body before I have a unconscious reaction.
Yes.
I think that's really beautiful and empowering.
It's so good. Do you want to talk about isolation for you and how what your body wants versus your logic?
Oh yeah. I think thinking back to an example of how I did something in my body that I didn't necessarily logically wanted to do, I would have a lot of seasons of like just wanting to go in a hole and isolate and lay in bed all day. And I would be like, consciously, I know that if like, I'd be like, consciously, I know if I call a friend, this will get better. Like I can have awareness. I've known that it's worked 20 times before when I've called a friend and it's helped. But my body didn't care, because to my body, the idea was still like any additional interaction could open me up to more threat, could open me up to a conversation that might bring up a trigger that I'm unaware of. And so my body was like, I want to just be in a hole and be as isolated as I possibly can, because that felt like the safest option. And I mean, one of the things I think is so liberating about finding this out was there's so much behavior. Like that's one example, but there's so much behavior in my life that I tried so hard just to willpower myself into change.
Yes.
Like similar to
100%.
the religious institution conversation we're having just then. I could just remember repenting over and over. God, please forgive me. And then being like, okay, this time
I'm going to willpower
I'm
through
gonna
it.
willpower myself. And even
I'm going to be a better person. I will never do this again.
100%. And when I would isolate, I'd drop the ball on things and then I'd not text people back. And I'd be like, oh gosh, I feel like such a bad friend. And so then my solution was willpower. Like next time I'll just try harder to not isolate instead of learning like, oh, my body has a positive intention that I'm not consciously aware of at the time. But if I can slow down and actually start to understand my body, I can understand my body is seeking to find safety in isolation. I know logically there's a lot of reasons why calling a friend would create safety, but to my body right now, my body believes the only way to feel safe is to be alone. And so once I could connect that, then it opened me up to having compassion on myself and then finding some more options for safety within myself.
What would you do now?
Yeah,
if your body is trapped in feeling like, no, it's not safe.
Well, a lot of how I understand it now is like being in a freeze response, like feeling like there's so much happening and I feel paralyzed. And like typically it's like I've had a lot of triggers that I haven't processed and they've stacked on one another.
Yes.
And so now I just feel like I'm in collapse.
Yes.
I need to lay in bed and then that's it. I'll just wait for all of the hard things to be over.
Yes.
100%. So now I recognize that. And so typically I start with doing something body centered. Like I have a little spiky mat that I lay on. It sounds strange, but what it does is just helps get the blood flow moving in my body again, which is a great way to sort of like
moves the energy to help you get out of freeze.
Exactly. And sometimes I'll just do whatever is the most realistic option that doesn't feel too overwhelming to me. So often when I'm isolating, calling a friend might feel like a hour-long conversation feels too big
much
for me, but I probably do have capacity to like send a quick text of either something that I feel thankful for to somebody that I have a relationship with, or a text that's like, hey, could you pray for me? Or could you remind me of like one good moment that we've had together? Because I'm noticing I'm a little stuck and I'm trying to orient myself back to love.
Yes.
And so I'll find something like that, or like often walks can be helpful for me, but I'll do it in like, what is the most realistic option of what I will do?
Like I can do a 5-minute walk.
Exactly.
Outside, right here at my house. I don't have to drive somewhere. I don't have to go on a hike, and I'm allowed to come back.
Yeah, 100%. Because I'm recognizing what is happening is my body is hypersensitive to threats. So I want to give it safety in bite-sized pieces, whatever actually feels more realistic for my nervous system to be able to do, I'll do. But I typically start with something that is body focused.
Yeah.
Even, like you and I we'll be out on a drive. And a lot of times when we go on drives, we'll start discussing things about our relationship, which then can turn into an escalation of not
feelings.
Not the funnest feelings, especially from a body perspective, right? And there's been many times where I've pulled over and I've said, I just need to get out of the car for a second. And I take off running, planning on not coming back. No. But I will run really fast, as hard as I can, really quick, and then run back. And for me, there's like, I've now released this intense energy where my body is going into threat mode. I'm like, can I get rid of that energy? And that's been like, even something like that, taking off on a fast run really quick. And it's not like it was like gone for 30 minutes.
Totally.
It's like 2 minutes back and forth. And then I come back and I'm like, okay, I can continue this conversation. And I'm back in my brain.
And that's what we're talking about, is soothing the body sensation. So when you're in the car and conflict is starting to happen, all of the memories of conflict that have gone wrong,
correct,
start flooding your body.
Whether and
you're
bracing.
You're not aware
consciously,
and it's just, I describe the energy in a situation like that as like electric. It's like building. And if you don't find a way to release it in a healthy way, you will find a way to release it in an unhealthy way.
Because then the volcano comes out and then all of a sudden you're like, and it's coming up out here at the person across from you, or whether it's coming out like this, or it's going into dead silence and disconnection completely and avoidance, or, you end up hitting one of those points that you get lost in and you feel like, I've been hijacked, like I said the word before. And so if you can catch yourself before you hit the hijacking, you can actually take control over the situation in a healthy way.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really beautiful thing. So there's a lot of ways that you can soothe your body.
I'll grab my legs. Like now my body, I notice it, like I just need my hands when something starts getting intense, and I'll start.
And what does that do for you?
It starts giving relief. Like I will feel the relief. So when you and I have, if I can't take off running, you and I might be in a
conversation
in our house that may feel intense in our house or something, or more high stakes to my body.
Stakes, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's not even intense yet. It's just, you think it could become. It
feels high, like it could be high stakes. It's not that yet. Correct. Yeah. And so I'll sit there and just grab my arms like this and squeeze them. And I'm like, it helps me even like ground myself back in. I'm like, okay, I'm here right now. Everything's okay. The feeling of grabbing my own arms feels comforting.
Yeah.
Well, it's comforting to your body. And then it's also helping you become more in present moment, because what implicit memory is. So I was thinking there's a lot of times when we need to talk through something that is not intense between us.
Correct.
But in the past has been scary.
Yep.
And so your anxiety will come up a lot just in that moment of, oh, we just have to talk about this subject.
That happened recently when we did our regulation episodes.
Yeah.
Where you were like, I want to validate you with regulation. I'm like, my body is screaming. Oh no.
Yeah, totally. Because you're like, what if this turns
what
against
if this turns
me?
into it, right? Like a body memory.
And so the concept is, logically, we're having a great connected conversation, but body-wise, you're in threat. And this is where it's maddening in relationship. How many times has it happened where you change your behavior in a relationship, but the other person is still reacting to you for who you used to be?
Right.
So like, let's say that I always cut you off. Let's imagine a world where that happens.
I don't know that I can imagine a world like that.
Let's imagine your wife has ADHD and she always cuts you off. Let's say that she really works hard and starts cutting you off less, but your body is actually still going to react because it has memories of years of it. So even if I'm trying my best to not do it, you're still going to have reactions for a while until your body is retrained to a new normal, because it's going to bring up all of the memories unconsciously without you even wanting it to. And this is where spouses will be like, that's not who I am anymore. And they'll feel a lot of hopelessness.
Yeah.
I know this has happened with you in our marriage.
Yeah. We've had conversations where I'm like, dude, I haven't done something like that in 3 or 4 years as a norm. Why is this thing being like brought into the table like this?
Right. But it's because my body still remembers this could happen in conflict. This is what could be going on. And so it's a really big battle. And this does give me, the more I've understood body memories, and once you've experienced it and labeled it as that, you start to have compassion for people, because they are one of the hardest things to beat. When you feel locked up and self-protected, to just try to logic through it can feel nearly impossible. A great one for body memories is when I feel when you get super self-conscious and you lock up and you can't think of anything funny to say and you can't think of anything to contribute, and you just feel really insecure and you're like, try to do something cool and you can't. You know what I mean? Body memories are like that. And once you've just noticed this is what that is, when somebody else tells you they're stuck, you just instantly have compassion because I know what it's like to be stuck in a reaction or a feeling that I don't want to be in. I know what it's like to have my logic say one thing and my body say another thing. And that's really helped us. There's a lot of tools that's really helped us be able to move through it. One of the tools that we use even is just narrating. Like, you'll say, I really want to be close to you, Abby, but I'm feeling really guarded. Or I'll be able to say, like, hey, I can feel that I'm locked behind my ice wall, but I don't want to be. I want connection. And sometimes just hearing that the other person has good intentions can help get compassion back online.
Not only that they have good intentions, but there's actually a battle that they're having themselves creates compassion, right? So even when I've been able to be like, I can tell that there's a lot of anxiety in my body and I can tell that it's bracing right now. I want to be able to engage like this, but I have a lot of fear. Like the vulnerability in that mixed with the reality of what's happening goes, okay, I know he doesn't just hate me. Yep. And I know that he's struggling with something and there's pain behind that. There's experiences behind that. And so again, that fosters connection.
I was just feeling how good it feels to talk about this on this subject because it's such a true thing about the world that we often are in a battle within ourselves.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to name that or understand that for years. And I hated it. And now I'm like, oh, this is part of my survival skills. It's awesome that my logic doesn't get trapped by my body most of the time. Sometimes it gets trapped by my body. Sometimes my body hijacks everything. But a lot of times my logic can still think, I must be in a flashback. I'm having big reactions. There is safety around. What's going on? And the fact that my logic can work. We can see that as an annoyance. Now it's a battle with my body, or we can see it as a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's hope that we can hold on to something that's true, even when our body is telling us everything else is true.
Yeah. And one thing that you're doing, even when you sort of start to have awareness of it, is you are making the implicit explicit. So what that means is, and then once the implicit content becomes explicit, so something that you feel more conscious of, something that you can verbalize, something that you feel like you have access to, that's when you have a lot more choice. Like that's when your prefrontal cortex can get involved and start to help your body and emotions all work together. And start to like be like a symphony. Moving together instead of like fragmented pieces.
Yeah. I feel like I had to hear somebody communicate about body memories regularly before the concept clicked for me.
Yeah.
And that was really enlightening.
Yeah. One thing I also thought can be helpful is that almost like when you can reframe it, the hijacking experience is like your body is actually trying to let you know about what emotional and internal experiences happened in your life that really mattered to you. It's like your body trying to give you a signal like, hey, this really affected me. This really affected me. This really affected me. And it's actually asking for you to acknowledge it, notice it, and help you close the loop.
Yes.
And so what happens is we can feel really at war with this implicit part of us, like feel really at war with our unconscious or our triggers. But really what its purpose is it's like our body reminding us as a way to sort of like signal to us that it needs our help to be able to close that loop a little bit more. And part of how we do that is we actually have an implicit event that happens. We have that triggered moment where our body experiences a sense of threat. And then when we can learn to have some sort of disproving event to that material, like some sort of resourceful experience, some type of safe experience, some type of like, oh, I'm recognizing that I'm safer now than I used to be type of experience, that then helps our body learn to close that loop a little bit more. And so every time you get triggered, if you offer yourself like some disproving event or some different experience, it starts to help those patterns in your body to get smaller and smaller.
Well, and really what we're saying is really what you're saying is our body will bring up the same sensations over and over and over again until we listen to it. It is trying to get our attention. Our body is trying to get our attention, trying to get us to look at it, notice it, and then get curious. What is going on here and what is it that you need? And how can I nurture and soothe you so that you don't have to keep yelling at me? It's like a kid that is like, hey, mom. And if you turn and look and say, what do you need? The kid can then communicate. If you don't, the kid will start yelling, and then the kid will start lighting things on fire in the house. And then the kid will start like shooting you with a dart gun. Like the kid, and that is what our body sensations and emotions do. And that's why we find ourselves stuck in addictions for years.
So good.
Because we're not actually turning towards the body sensations and saying, what are these feelings?
Yeah.
And what is it that they need for resolve? We're just saying, how do I get out of these feelings fast?
Yeah.
And most of us are living our lives trying to get out of feelings fast because it feels uncomfortable in our body. And so just turning towards our feelings begins the healing process. Just turning towards with curiosity. But that also means we have to stay present enough to turn towards instead of get out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you shared basically exactly what I was going to share while I was thinking about it. No,
you shared a brain.
Yeah, we shared
What
a brain.
were you going to say?
Like, literally the exact same stuff. I was going to add to it though, is that we perceive these experiences as annoyances.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, why is this happening? This is stupid. This needs to just stop. And again, we go into the shame spirals. I'm just being a bad person for this behavior instead of, like you said, the kid is having a conversation, so to say, trying to get our attention. But that requires us being willing to engage with compassion, understanding that there's a story going on inside of me that if I understand the story, then I make sense. Then this behavior makes sense.
So good.
And we're oftentimes just trying to do the right thing rather than get to the repair. Right? We just want to do the right thing rather than get to the repair, because that repair, that process of repair you were talking about, feels burdensome in our eyes. But we'll go years with addictions, 10, 20, 30 years stuck in cycles when we could have completed it and dealt with it if we stopped seeing it as an annoyance, but rather an invitation. So
yeah, I love that.
Beautiful.
I was thinking, this is in my life, it's not even just these big things. It's like the level of anxiety I have in my life, the level of so implicit memory is the memories that you have. Oftentimes your young years, you have attachment memories. And so from like 0 to 7, you're learning attachment, and we don't remember most of what we learned and most of the chaos going on. And so from 0 to 7, my body is deciding how much stress I should be in every day. It's deciding how much anxiety I should have in my relationships every day. It's deciding how safe or unsafe I should feel in the world. And then if I don't retrain it, that just repeats my entire life through. And so I find relationships that will keep that level of anxiety in my life. Or if they won't keep that level of anxiety, I will keep that level of anxiety with them in my life. I will find a way to keep repeating the body sensations, the patterned body sensations of stress, of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yeah.
They just become natural to me until I actually decide I can't just keep living with my emotions repeating all the time. I can't just keep living in this anxiety cycle. I can't just keep living with this level of chaos and drama. And so for me, when I went through PTSD, I went through this season of a few years where there were so many traumatic events that happened that it got my nervous system stuck in fight or flight all the time, or freeze. I was just constantly dysregulated. And so then after the trauma was over, I still stayed that level of dysregulated in my life, even though those events were no longer happening. And I would actually still be in that level of dysregulation if I didn't train my body to start to feel good, train my body and my mind to start to find safety, train myself to actually get calm and regulated. I would just stay in that level of chaos, repeating that cycle indefinitely. Yeah. And so the powerful thing is the ability to recognize I don't have to live in this stress that I'm used to. I don't have to live in relationship dynamics like they've been my whole life. but it takes the time and energy to turn towards myself, see what's going on inside of my body, and learn how to soothe my nervous system to create a new normal.
Yeah. It's good.
Beautiful.
Anything else?
You guys just all got silent.
Like, beautiful. Great. I mean,
Beautiful.
a way I like to think about what you just described is like, it's like your body is like there's like a thermostat in your body that is like a normal state in which it feels the most comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say your body is, let's say it's 80 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to get it to lower to 70, it is like incrementally.
Yes.
Even if you went to your house and you set the thermostat and you went back down to 70, it would take some time
Mm-hmm.
for your body to sort of, for the, the temperature in your house to slowly go down
Mm-hmm.
to that temperature. And similarly to how our bodies are wired. And so I love this conversation because I think it gives a lot of compassion for just that our bodies are acting the best it knows how. It's like, this is the state that I feel the most safe in, and I want to protect that state, but also change is possible. It just can be a little bit of a slow moving process.
Yeah, I really love that. It did
Yeah.
take me a few years and I'm still regulating my nervous system. But I have so much grace, and I feel so much safer and so much more calm than I used to. And I've been able to leave crazy circumstances because I've been ready to be like, I actually don't need that chaos in my life anymore. Yeah. Whereas before I needed the chaos because it matched my nervous system. And so you actually make different life choices. The more regulated you are, the more connected to yourself you are, and the more you've calmed your nervous system. I know that in my experience of PTSD, it was so much panic for me. And then when I started recognizing that emotions are energy in your body, I started realizing that my whole life I'd been having so much energy in my body that I didn't know how to move through and work with. And so it ended up feeling very empowering for me to get PTSD because it taught me a way to set a new normal. And it began, I would say, just like you said, like degree by degree. I slowly got to where 79 felt more comfortable. I slowly got to where 78 felt more comfortable. And so then we can completely change the trajectory of our life.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's good. I know that if you're listening to this today and you're thinking, I would love to go on a deep dive with a community of people going on this journey, you can come join Reclaiming You coming up here. January 11th is when it starts and kicks off for 13, 14 weeks of a course. It's live experience every week as the two of you are leading the journey with people and teaching them how to go through this process.
And it's really practical. We're going to explain how your nervous system and your brain and your emotions work, but we're also going to practically start giving you exercises to help you feel calm, help you feel good again. Like one of our slogans is learn how to feel good in your body again and learn how to feel good longer.
Delightful.
Learn how to feel safer inside of yourself. Yeah.
So if you want to check that out and participate in that, you can go to Justin and Abi, that's abi.com/reclaiming-you. And, if you've enjoyed this episode and you've been being impacted, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it. Share it with people. That's how people get their lives changed, is when they get access to the information. It's you guys sharing it that helps them get that. So
yeah. Sharing is the big thing.
Sharing is caring, kids. Hey, here's the deal. I've got a doctor's appointment I got to go to, so I'm getting out of here.
Okay, but before you say that, can I just validate one thing?
Oh my God. Live?
Yes.
Yes.
You have done such a good job of working on noticing your body energy in our marriage, whether it was anxiety or frustration or panic or rushing. You've actually completely changed the culture inside your own body of how the energy works in your life. And you've learned to be more calm and connected to yourself. And it has made it so that our marriage is so much more safe for me.
Oh.
And I just wanted to thank you for that. It's made it so that recording the podcast is safer. It's made it so that working with you in our business is safer. Like, you've done a lot of work to retrain your system. And I'm really proud of you.
Oh, thanks. Well, my nervous system was hijacking me until I hijacked my nervous system. I made it my bitch.
Is that the slogan? Make your nervous system your bitch. We'll get t-shirts made. Yeah.
Anyways, all right, we're going away. If you haven't yet, go to YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell button,
Share
and share it. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.